Morning, friends. Today we would have our last class on environment, biodiversity, and climate change. So here, primarily, we are discussing two topics: the ozone layer depletion and the environmental impact assessment. But we're also covering environment, biodiversity, and climate change updates of July and August. So everything till 1st of September is there in the notes. All the updates till 1st of September is there in the notes. If there would be any update between 1st of September and 10th of September, we would keep doing it with the governance and social justice topics that we are covering. उसके end में ही मैं environment, biodiversity and climate change updates करके कर दूंगा. ठीक है. So initially in the very first lecture that we had taken for environment, biodiversity and climate change, I had said that आपको static में कुछ करने का जरूरत नहीं है. I'm sorry for that. There are 3 chapters of Shankar Ganesh. Oh, not Shankar Ganesh, Shankar. Uh, which are dealing with issues like environment and ecology, food chain, food web. Those 3 chapters you'll have to do. I haven't been able to cover those 3 chapters. Other than that, I have covered all the static portion also in this program or in the current affairs program. So first 3 or 4 chapters are there which we haven't covered in here. Okay, so that you'll have to do yourself. Please कर लीजिएगा उसे because दो questions from those topics generally don't get asked, but still we should be completely prepared. Though most of you would be able to deal with questions like nitrogen cycle or carbon cycle, हमने nitrogen pollution करते टाइम कुछ पढ़ा है, but it's always good that you remain confident कि नहीं मैं सब कुछ पढ़ के आया हूँ. So first 3 chapters of Shankar IAS along with what we are covering in the class would be good enough, or the corresponding chapters of Rajgopalan. Rajgopalan is also a very good book. I think first 2 chapters there are good enough where they are dealing with the basics. Environment क्या होता है, ecology क्या होता है, ecosystem क्या होता है, food chain, food web, these basic things you'll have to do. Okay, then since we are completing this topic today, or this is the last booklet that we'll be dealing with, we are done with environment, biodiversity and climate change. We'll have a full test on it this Monday. The test that you will have, I wanted to keep it on Sunday, but some students have said that EPFO का exam है उस दिन, and a lot of you are writing that exam, so I'm not keeping it on Sunday. On Monday we'll have a full test on environment, biodiversity and climate change. Last week we had a full test on polity after we had completed polity. This week we'll have a full test on environment, biodiversity and climate change. And from next week सेक्शनल टेस्ट तो होंगे, बट उसके अलावा भी आपके 4 फुल सिलेबस टेस्ट होगा जिसमें एवरीथिंग वुड बी इंक्लूडेड. हिस्ट्री, ज्योग्राफी, पॉलिटी, इकोनॉमी, साइंस, एनवायरनमेंट, लाइक यूपीएससी पैटर्न पे 4 फुल सिलेबस टेस्ट वुड बी डन एज पार्ट ऑफ योर करंट अफेयर्स प्रोग्राम. ओके, तो विल स्टार्ट टुडेस क्लास. मुझे बच्चे देख रहे हैं बहुत सारे, तो शुरू कर देते हैं. ओजोन लेयर डिप्लीशन. ओजोन डिप्लीशन की वजह मुझे ओजोन लेयर डिप्लीशन लिखना चाहिए यहाँ पे. ओजोन लेयर डिप्लीशन, this is the topic that we want to cover. This becomes especially important because abhi in August India has ratified Kigali agreement. So Kigali agreement is Kigali amendment is an amendment to Montreal protocol which is associated with ozone depletion. So वैसे भी, like even if it was I would say I was not covering static portion. मैं तो static portion भी cover कर रहा हूँ, but even if I was not covering static portion because of current affairs, I would have had to cover it. So to understand ozone layer depletion, let's first understand what is ozone layer. So we know that in our atmosphere, even at our level, that is at the tropospheric level, अर्थ का एटमॉस्फेयर अलग अलग लेयर्स में डिवाइडेड है. दिस ट्रोपोस्फेयर व्हिच गोज रफली टू 10 किलोमीटर्स, देन दिस स्ट्रेटोस्फेयर, देन आगे और भी लेयर्स हैं. तो इवन इन ट्रोपोस्फेयर देयर इज ओजोन अवेलेबल, and we have talked about ozone pollution in air pollution section where we spoke about how ozone gets produced. It's a secondary pollutant which gets produced by the reaction of volatile organic carbon with nitrous oxide, nitrogen oxide, various oxides, and in the presence of sunlight. And उसके harmful impacts हमने पढ़े थे. In air pollution we had studied those things, but when we talk about ozone layer, we are talking about stratosphere, not troposphere, not the ozone that we end up breathing in. The ozone which is there in the stratosphere 10 kilometers से ऊपर वाला जो एटमॉस्फेयर का लेयर है, that is stratosphere, and ozone there, see troposphere उसके ऊपर जो लेयर है that is stratosphere, and stratosphere का जो lower part है, the lower side of stratosphere, this whole thing, let's say stratosphere, उसका जो lower part है, it has what is known as ozone layer. So does it has ozone layer, does it mean that that layer is full of ozone? No. Generally, the concentration of ozone in that layer when compared to other layers is high. When we are calling that layer ozone layer, it does not mean that वहाँ पे ozone ही ozone है. No. When compared to other parts, ozone का concentration in this layer is higher, and this layer is called ozone. Fine. Now, this ozone layer does what? This ozone layer will protect you from ultraviolet rays, or specifically ultraviolet B, UVB radiation. This ozone layer prevent the ultraviolet rays from reaching Earth, and thus is very ozone on ground which we were breathing in was harmful for us, but ozone in this layer of the stratosphere, it is preventing ultraviolet rays from penetrating, and thus is crucial. But when we damage this layer, when we destroy this layer, UVB radiation is able to reach us, which is harmful, and this damaging is called ozone layer depletion. Okay, fine. So it is protecting us from ultraviolet, it is protecting ultraviolet rays from reaching Earth, but there's one more advantage of ozone layer. It protects oxygen of the lower layer. हमारे जो lower layer troposphere में we have oxygen that we breathe in, it protects oxygen of the lower layer. Why? How? Because those ultraviolet rays, if they reach this layer, they will break up the oxygen by the ultraviolet action, by the ultraviolet rays, actions of the ultraviolet rays. So not only UVB radiation का जो negative impact होगा on our health and all, ozone layer protects us from that, but ozone layer also ensures that oxygen in the tropospheric level is not destroyed. ये दो advantages, crucial advantages हैं. We'll talk about some more things. But now come to depletion. We are saying that there is troposphere, there is stratosphere. Stratosphere का lower part has ozone layer, that is higher concentration of ozone. Now, why was it getting depleted? Why did the issue of ozone layer depletion come into play? So there are various chemical substances which contribute to ozone layer depletion. Let's talk about the most important chemical substance here was chlorofluorocarbon. CFC. Chlorofluorocarbon. These chlorofluorocarbons produce chlorine. And this chlorine is something, this free chlorine atom is something that will react with ozone layer to give chlorine oxide plus O2. This formula is already there in your notes, don't worry. So in this way, it destroys ozone layer. Similarly, there are various chemical substances such as halogens which have bromine atom, which release bromine atom, and bromine atom is also dangerous and destroys ozone layer. We'll talk about how that is happening, how chlorine atom and bromine atom both are doing that. We'll talk about exact chemical reaction. Bus, give me some time. But why, if chlorofluorocarbons or halogens or various other compounds are destroying ozone layer, why are we using them? Or which are the places, which are the industries which produce these compounds which damaged ozone layer? Chlorofluorocarbons damaged ozone layer, no. So which are the industries which were producing chlorofluorocarbons which were damaging to ozone layer? So chlorofluorocarbons mostly were used as refrigerants and as aerosol propellants. These were the two most important applications. I'm saying were because now they are not used. Now in your refrigerants, chlorofluorocarbons are not used. So they were the most important uses of chlorofluorocarbon. But if you have a 20-year-old refrigerator, it may still have chlorofluorocarbon. And when you will dispose it, when you will dispose that a 20-year-old refrigerator, it may still release chlorofluorocarbon in the atmosphere, eventually which may reach stratosphere, which may damage it. Then I'm sorry. Chlorofluorocarbons are not like other compounds, SO2 or nitrous oxide or other compounds, which may be, let's say, जो sulfur dioxide atmosphere में होता है, when rainfall takes place, sulfur dioxide will react with water to form sulfuric acid and will fall on the ground. Or there are some other chemicals which in the presence of sunlight will dissipate, will get destroyed. But chlorofluorocarbons do not do that. They cannot be eliminated from atmosphere by usual scavenging process such as photodissociation, rainout or oxidation. And they end up escaping into stratosphere. And there they destroy ozone. The chlorofluorocarbons, where were they being used? They were used in refrigerants, as refrigerants, or in the aerosol propellants for making plastic foam. They would not be destroyed just like that. If they get into the atmosphere by photodissociation or by oxidation or by rainfall, they will not be washed away. They would reach the stratosphere and create problems. Then there are bromine containing compounds also. Bromine is a chlorine atom from chlorofluorocarbons will destroy ozone layer. ऐसे ही bromine atoms from various bromine compounds like halogens or HBFCs, hydrobromofluorocarbons, HBFC, are also damaging. These HBFCs are used in fire extinguishers. Methyl bromide, this is another compound which can produce bromine atom. It is used in pesticides. There are compounds like carbon tetrachloride. Carbon tetrachloride is a very common solvent used in industry. This carbon tetrachloride also can release chlorine atom and would damage stratospheric ozone and thus would damage ozone layer. There is methyl chloroform. Methyl chloroform is a cleaning solvent for clothes, for metals, and it's also a propellant in wide range of consumer projects such as correction fluid, dry cleaning sprays, spray adhesives and other aerosols. Methyl chloroform is another compound which is ozone depleting in nature. There is trichloroethane. It's also a solvent used in industry. There is hydrochlorofluorocarbons, HCFC. So देखो, CFCs were damaging in nature. So to replace CFCs, scientists developed new product called hydrochlorofluorocarbons. But these were only interim replacement because even they, though less damaging to ozone, even they damaged ozone layer. Further, they also have global warming effect. Their greenhouse effect is much higher. We'll talk about that. Then there is nitrous oxide and sulfuric acid particles. They also contribute to ozone layer depletion. This is important. Generally, these are some things which we would ignore. How do nitrous oxide or how do sulfuric acid contribute to ozone layer depletion? कोई मुझे बताएगा? Nitrous oxide और sulfuric acid ozone layer depletion में कैसे role play करेंगे? Anyone? Rupali is asking, sir, how hydrofluorocarbons are greenhouse gases but non-ozone depleting? बेटा हाइड्रोफ्लोरोकार HFCs आर ग्रीन हाउस गैसेस. हमने तो अभी HFCs की बात भी नहीं करी ना. HCFCs पढ़ा है. हाइड्रोक्लोरोफ्लोरोकार्बन्स, they are both ozone depleting but less ozone depleting when compared to chlorofluorocarbons, and they are greenhouse gases as well. अभी तो हमने हाइड्रोफ्लोरोकार्बन्स के बारे में बात भी नहीं करी है. ओके, बट एनीवन, नाइट्रस ऑक्साइड और सल्फ्यूरिक एसिड पार्टिकल्स कैसे रोल प्ले करते हैं इन डिप्लीटिंग ओजोन? नहीं, देखो सिंपल फंडा. क्लोरीन एटम विल रिएक्ट विथ ओजोन टू प्रोड्यूस क्लोरीन ऑक्साइड प्लस O2. Nitrous oxide will do the same. It also needs oxygen. It will react with ozone to produce nitrogen dioxide. And अभी देखते हैं, सारे reactions देखते हैं. We'll understand that. Let's understand the science behind depletion. अभी तक हम बोल रहे हैं कि this compound will destroy it, this compound will destroy it. How would various compound destroy ozone layer? तो सबसे पहले let's understand through chlorine atom how chlorine atom destroys ozone layer. So chlorofluorocarbons or CFCs, they have what? They have chlorine atom. Now this chlorine atom, when released in stratosphere, will react with ozone to produce chlorine oxide plus ओजोन का एटम डिस्ट्रॉय हो गया. ओजोन का एटम डिस्ट्रॉय हो गया, बट और भी प्रॉब्लम्स हैं. देयर आर मोर इश्यूज एसोसिएटेड. व्हाट आर द इश्यूज? दिस क्लोरीन ऑक्साइड will further react with another free oxygen atom और जो उससे प्रोड्यूस होगा to form chlorine plus oxygen. So what is happening? This chlorine becomes free again. So one chlorine atom will eventually destroy ozone, would become free, would again 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 destroy ozone, would become free. ऐसा नहीं है एक क्लोरीन एटम इज डिस्ट्रॉइंग ओनली वन ओजोन एटम. नो, ओजोन मॉलिक्यूल. No, this chlorine atom will destroy thousands of ozone molecule, and thus we say that the destruction is catalytic in nature. So the depletion of ozone is catalytic. Chlorine oxide which has been formed here will combine with an oxygen atom to form O2, and Cl will be made free, which will further react with ozone to form ClO, which will react with oxygen atom to form Cl plus O2. जो Cl बन गया फिर से, that will react with ozone. Please ensure that all of you are able to understand this. समझ में आ रही है ये बात? नहीं तो I'll explain it again. Please let me know अगर किसी को समझ में नहीं आया तो. Okay. Now, similar is the case with bromine atom, but bromine atom is more dangerous. We'll explain how. So bromine also reacts with ozone to form bromine monoxide and oxygen. Till now, it's similar to chlorine. But then bromine monoxide, BRO, will react with chlorine monoxide to produce oxygen, bromine. So bromine did not only destroyed ozone, it produced bromine again plus chlorine again. So this chlorine atom also will go into its cycle of destruction of ozone, and वो bromine तो कर ही रहा था. Did you understand this? Why bromine is more destructive when compared to chlorine? Because bromine, यहाँ पे मैं आपको let me write down the formula exactly. Bromine will react with ozone to form bromine monoxide plus, right, and then this bromine monoxide will react with chlorine monoxide to form bromine plus chlorine plus O2. So earlier we had only bromine, which was part of this cycle where it was destroying ozone. Now it has also produced chlorine. One chlorine atom will again destroy thousands of ozone molecules, and bromine atoms will keep destroying more ozone molecules and will keep producing more chlorine atoms. Bromine is much more dangerous to ozone layer when compared to chlorine. Now let's look at nitrous oxide. Nitric oxide. How would nitric oxide destroy ozone? Nitric oxide is NO. It will react with ozone to form nitrogen dioxide NO2 and oxygen atom. This nitrogen dioxide will react with a single monoxide to produce वापस से nitric oxide. So what is happening is, again nitric oxide is formed at the end. Like chlorine, like bromine, nitric oxide is formed again. It will keep reacting with ozone molecules and keep destroying. Fine. अभी हम sulfuric acid and उन सबको समझते हैं कि how will they play a role. But roughly you people are understanding how ozone layer depletion, what is the science behind, what is the chemical formula behind ozone layer depletion, and why one atom of chlorine or one atom of bromine would be so dangerous. Now, how much of ozone was destroyed? Maximum how much? Like we have, this is Earth. Around Earth, we have a ozone layer. And ozone layer was being destroyed. So यहाँ पे let's say ozone hole was getting created. Ozone hole was getting created. There, all the ozone was destroyed. The maximum, how big a hole was ever created? The maximum size of ozone hole that we reached was in 2000, and that was of 29 million square. We started taking steps from 1980s. So chlorofluorocarbons phase out हो रहा था, but even in 1990s we were using it. So in 1980s the ozone depletion continued. In 1990s the ozone depletion continued. It reached its peak in 2000. An area of 29 million square kilometer was of ozone hole was created. Earth, what is the size of India? Territorial size 3.2 million square kilometer. 29 million square kilometer. इंडिया का जितना साइज है उससे 9 टाइम्स ज्यादा. 3 9s are 27, 2 9s are 1.8. तो इंडिया का 9 टाइम्स 28.8, 29 मिलियन स्क्वायर किलोमीटर. साइज ऑफ इंडिया उससे बड़ा, उससे ऑलमोस्ट 9 टाइम्स बड़ा होल over Antarctica was created. You'll see, you'll notice here I've made it on the southern pole side. The hole was created on the southern pole side. We'll talk about that. So this was the maximum size. And after this, because of various efforts that humans have taken, the ozone hole, the ozone layer hole has kept on reducing, has kept on improving by 1-2% every year. Situation is improving. But at that time, this bigger hole was created. The question that would come to our mind would be, when I just showed you the hole was shown on the southern side, south pole wala side. So why south pole? That is when most of the pollution is happening in the northern hemisphere. You'll see Europe is situated in the northern hemisphere, America is situated in the northern hemisphere, India, China, Russia, most of the Southeast Asian countries, polluting Southeast Asian countries, they're situated in the northern hemisphere. Why this depletion was taking place more on the southern hemisphere? So before we get into that, before we get into why more depletion was taking place in southern hemisphere, let us first understand what is the role of polar stratospheric cloud in ozone layer depletion. Role of polar stratospheric clouds in ozone layer depletion. So first of all, what are these polar stratospheric cloud? Look at the three words. Polar, पोल के पास बन रहे होंगे, स्ट्रेटोस्फेरिक, स्ट्रेटोस्फेयर में बन रहे होंगे. The name itself will give you a lot of the things about the cloud. So these are nacreous, nacreous मतलब थोड़े shining, iridescence वाले clouds which are formed in the winter polar stratosphere. Winters में in the polar stratosphere they are formed at a high altitude of 15 to 25 kilometers. So this is the stratospheric layer. This cloud not necessarily is that of water. The cloud has water, nitric acid or sulfuric acid. So first, what is polar stratospheric cloud? These are nacreous clouds. Nacreous का मतलब something which shows iridescence. Okay, which is also called mother of pearl and all. So this cloud is polar stratospheric. पोलर रीजन में विंटर्स में स्ट्रेटोस्फेरिक लेयर में फॉर्म होता है. इट कंसिस्ट ऑफ वाटर, नाइट्रिक एसिड एंड और सल्फ्यूरिक. नाउ व्हाट इज द रोल ऑफ पोलर स्ट्रेटोस्फेरिक क्लाउड इन द ओजोन लेयर डिप्लीशन? पोलर स्ट्रेटोस्फेरिक क्लाउड का रोल क्या है इन ओजोन लेयर डिप्लीशन? तो सी जनरली व्हाट हैपेंस व्हेन क्लोरीन इज रिलीज्ड, तो हमारे CFC, chlorofluorocarbon is the ozone depleting substance that we were talking about. Chlorofluorocarbon is the ozone depleting substance that we are talking about. It releases chlorine. जब ये breakdown होगा तो it will release chlorine which will destroy our ozone layer. But when it releases chlorine, chlorine oxide भी form हो रहा है. Chlorine will react with ozone to form chlorine oxide. These two things react further to form things like ClNO3, chlorine nitrate, or HCl. These are other chlorine compounds which are formed by this chlorine atom. So what would happen? The chlorine atom which are dangerous for us, in reality they further react with other chemicals to produce ClNO3, chlorine nitrate and hydrochloric acid. We do not want to कैसे reaction रहा, हम नहीं जाते हैं. But these are stable. These would not further react with ozone and all to destroy ozone. These are stable compounds. Hydrochloric acid is a stable compound. Chlorine nitrate is a stable compound, and thus they inactivate chlorine, which is dangerous. They have done what? They have inactivated chlorine. Now chlorine will not be able to destroy ozone. I hope ये समझ में आ रहा है. Okay. In reality, this should happen, but here comes the role of polar stratospheric clouds, PSCs, that we were just talking. They will free the chlorine. They will activate the chlorine and absorb the chlorine nitrate बन रहा था, एक stable chlorine compound बन गया था. Chlorine was not free for destroying ozone. But what polar stratospheric cloud do? They provide a surface. Substrate चाहिए होता है कई बार reaction होने के लिए. Catalyst provide substrate, surface. So these polar stratospheric compound polar stratospheric clouds provide substrate for chemical reaction which frees chlorine from its reservoir. What are the reservoirs of chlorine? HCl, ClONO2 और ClNO3. मैंने इसे ClNO3 लिखा था, ClONO2 भी लिख सकते हैं. क्लोरीन ऑक्साइड नाइट्रोजन डाइऑक्साइड मिलके बनता है. तो यहां से reaction between HCl and ClONO2 is very less, but when in general reaction between HCl which is formed or ClONO2 which is formed is very slow. But polar stratospheric cloud, by providing it the surface, by providing this reaction, the substrate catalyze this reaction, and this reaction occurs at much faster rate. So HCl and chlorine nitrate will react to form chlorine and nitric acid. Chlorine free हो गया. This chlorine got freed because this reaction could take place. This reaction generally takes place very slowly. It took place fast because polar stratospheric clouds provided the substrate, provided surface where the reaction can. So what is the role of polar stratospheric clouds? ये स्टेबल क्लोरीन को, क्लोरीन नाइट्रेट और HCl में जो क्लोरीन इनएक्टिवेट हो गया है, the chlorine which has been inactivated, it will make those compounds react faster and activate chlorine. Okay, I'll summarize the whole thing again so that आपको बहुत clearly समझ में आ जाए. तो chlorofluorocarbons will release chlorine, which are dangerous for ozone layer. Which are dangerous for ozone layer? Chlorine or chlorine oxide. These are the kind of things which are produced, which are harmful for ozone. Chlorine reacts with ozone to form ClO2. ClO reacts with ozone to form chlorine plus oxygen, right? So it सब destroying है. But these are highly reactive and they do not stay like this. They would react with other compounds to form chlorine nitrate, and they may also form HCl. This chlorine nitrate or HCl are stable, or they are stable. They have inactivated chlorine. They have inactivated chlorine. Chlorine will not react with ozone. Chlorine को उन्होंने store कर लिया है. They are like reservoirs of chlorine, the dangerous atom which was destroying our ozone layer. Okay, but and their reaction takes place very slowly. But when polar stratospheric clouds are present, polar stratospheric clouds are providing what? It is providing the surface on which this reaction can be found. It acts as catalyst, it provides substrate, it provides surface where this reaction can be fast, and Cl2 is, by this reaction, Cl2 is because of presence of polar stratospheric. I hope सबको समझ में आया. The role of polar stratospheric cloud, it is providing substrate for this reaction. I think it's given in Shankar, but समझ में नहीं आ पाता है. I'm trying to focus a bit more on this. Fine. So सबको role of polar stratospheric cloud in ozone layer depletion समझ में आ गया. It is providing the substrate for compounds which are reserving, which are storing chlorine to react and release chlorine. Okay, now why is ozone layer depletion more prominent in the southern hemisphere? Why is ozone layer depletion more prominent in southern hemisphere rather than northern? ये कौन बताएगा? Why is ozone layer? देखो पूरा chlorofluorocarbons which were ozone depleting was produced more in northern hemisphere, but still Arctic circle या North Pole पे hole ज़्यादा बड़ा नहीं बना. Hole was formed even on the North Pole, even on the stratospheric region of the North Pole, but the hole on the South Pole was very large. Why was it? So one reason, or reason for the reason, was that southern pole is much more colder. Now, why is South Pole colder? Look at the geography. See, on the North Pole is basically consisting of Arctic Sea. Now, Arctic Sea में the top layer would freeze. and ice would be formed, but नीचे तो पानी है, right? So as more and more ice is formed, more pressure on the water would be put. It will always have, even when you go on North Pole, you will drill, at the bottom you will find some water. So basically the cold is getting transmitted to deeper and deeper layer, and thus less less cold is there. ठंड penetrate हो रहा है ना अंदर तक. Whereas, see, you must remember this logic that land gets cooled faster than water. Land get heated faster than water. Why would land get cooled faster? Because land will lose heat very quickly, right? But water के केस में क्या होगा? Even if water is losing heat, water had more heat at the bottom, it will come up, which doesn't happen in case of land. अब जाओ southern pole पे. Southern pole पे what do we have? The continent, the land. So it will get cold faster. Further, जब इस पे ice पड़ रहा होगा, thicker and thicker layer, you know which is the highest continent? Height में, height wise देखोगे तो average height किस continent का सबसे ज्यादा? It is Arctic. Because ice इस पे जितना पड़ता है वो पड़ता जाता है layer, but whereas on an ocean, if ice would fall, it will get, right? So Antarctica is colder, is more cold, is cooler, then which leads to stable polar stratosphere. हमें बेसिकली कोल्ड होने से CFC में क्या रिलेशन आया? जो स्ट्रेटोस्फेरिक क्लाउड होगा वो ज्यादा स्टेबल रहेगा, तो stability of vortex which leads to, for which eventually contributes in that stratospheric cloud and all, is higher in case of southern hemisphere, which leads to ozone layer depletion. It's easier for ozone depleting substances to reach southern hemisphere when compared to northern south pole stratosphere when compared to north pole. Fine. Ozone depletion समझ में आना चाहिए. Now we'll talk about harmful impacts of ozone depletion, or basically harmful impact of ultraviolet B radiation reaching. Ultraviolet B radiation reached Earth, right? वही problem थी हमारी. What are the harmful impact of ultraviolet B radiations reaching Earth? तो सबसे पहले है human and animal health. The ultraviolet radiation, high energy radiation, will cause cancer, will cause eye disease, will cause infectious morbidity, various issues it may cause. Then plants and aquatic ecosystem के physiological and development process also get affected by. There are effect on biogeochemical cycle also. For example, जो बहुत सारे cycles हैं, nitrogen cycle, phosphorus cycle, carbon cycle, these are all part of this biogeochemical cycle. They also get hampered or negatively impacted in different ways. Every cycle would get impacted in different ways. कोई uniform तरीका नहीं है. Then air quality may get affected. Why? When ultraviolet B radiations reach Earth, they impact जो atmosphere में gases हैं, they damage them, impact them. So their role may change. For example, higher photodissociation rate of key trace gases take place. Trace gases which are present in very less quantity in the air, उनका photodissociation would be higher in presence of ultraviolet B radiations. Then material, plastic material which is protecting, let's say you, when ultraviolet B radiations fall on them, they get damaged easily. Building material gets damaged faster. So they would even harm material. So it's harmful for health, it's harmful for environment, it's harmful for biodiversity around us, it's harmful for let's say aquatic life forms, fish की growth और जो नए बच्चे होते हैं उनकी growth, all those things get negatively impacted. They're harmful for building materials. So we have studied about electromagnetic waves. We know that visible light के beyond आता है ultraviolet, right? So ultraviolet rays are harmful for us because they're high energy. So all those harmful impacts would be caused by this aspect. Okay, so problem. Ultraviolet rays are problematic for us. Ozone layer, agar we are destroying ozone layer, ultraviolet rays would reach Earth. So what steps were taken to prevent depletion of ozone layer or to reduce the production of chlorofluorocarbons, carbon tetrachloride and all such halogens and all such compounds? The first such global decision was Vienna Convention. जैसे for climate change we have United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, UNFCCC. We have that. In the same way, we have Vienna Convention, which was signed in 1985. At that time, it was realized that yes, ozone layer is depleting. It was realized that ozone layer is depleting. Deplete ho raha hai, and the global community have to come together, because when ozone layer is depleting, everyone will get impacted. Even though in India we were not using a lot of refrigerants, even though in Africa people were not using a lot of refrigerants, even though all the chlorofluorocarbons, most of the chlorofluorocarbons were being produced by Europe and USA, even though that even though that all those things were there, everyone is going to get impacted. आपके लिए स्पेशल चेयर मंगा दे कुछ? हाँ भाई, चलिए. तो this convention, Vienna Convention, which was signed in 1985 and which came into force in 1998, was to promote cooperation among the global community to fight against ozone layer depletion. Here, like UNFCCC में कोई legally binding target दिया था? नहीं. It was given in Kyoto Protocol, not in UNFCCC. In the same way, Vienna Convention, no legally binding targets were given. It was focused on cooperation, do not contain legally binding control targets. But this move was unprecedented. For the first time, global community was able to come together to deal with a global environmental. Even before UNFCCC 1992 में sign हुआ था. Even before that Vienna Convention, the global community came together. Let all humanity come together and solve this issue. And you'd be surprised to know that in 2009 it became the first global convention which saw universal ratification. All the countries in the world in 2009 had ratified Vienna Convention, 1985. But with time, what happened? With time, we realized that okay, chlorofluorocarbons are responsible, carbon tetrachloride is responsible, and just having a convention for global community to cooperate on this issue would not be enough. We will have to come up with legally binding targets. And Montreal Protocol. Montreal Protocol was signed in 1987, and after enough number of ratification, it came into force in 1989. What is Montreal Protocol focused upon? It's an international treaty designed to protect ozone layer through reduction of production and consumption of ozone depleting substances. Reduction of production and consumption of ozone depleting. Fine. Now, what are the key features of Montreal? Where is the city of Montreal located? Canada. Montreal is located in, वहां पे एग्रीमेंट साइन हुआ, वहां से हम मॉन्ट्रियल प्रोटोकॉल बोल रहे हैं. क्योटो प्रोटोकॉल, क्योटो इज वेयर? जापान. तो द यूएनएफसीसी के अंदर जो प्रोटोकॉल हमने साइन किया, दैट वाज क्योटो प्रोटोकॉल. द सेम वे अंडर वियना कन्वेंशन, टू implement Vienna Conventions, to achieve the goals of Vienna Convention, the protocol that we have is Montreal. So what are the features? One, it is focused on that production and import of nearly 100 substances that are harmful for ozone layer should be eliminated. Now, you would say, sir, the developed countries already may have developed newer technologies, but for countries like India, imposing this ban in 1980s would not have been suitable. Yes, everything had to be eliminated, but in a phase-wise manner. Developing countries were given grace period. They were given 10-15 extra years. Why? Because developing countries were still far behind in terms of technology, in terms of uh, the money that they had to come up with new technology. So यहाँ पे भी common but differentiated responsibility principle is used. जैसे in Kyoto Protocol only developed countries were supposed to reduce their emission targets. ऐसे यहाँ पे भी we see the common but differentiated responsibility principle. Then a fund was created, a multilateral fund was created which was supposed to help selected developing countries to fight ozone depleting substances, to reduce ozone depleting substances. Then parties were supposed to report annually on production, import and export of ODS. Like ODS immediately banned nahi hua hai. Developing countries were given 10-15 years. But even then they had to inform that how much of ODS is being produced in their country, how much is being imported, how much is being exported. It precluded parties from trading ozone depleting substance with non-parties. That is, जो parties हैं, parties in the sense the countries which have signed Montreal Protocol, they had to ban trade of ozone depleting substance with non-parties, parties which have not signed Montreal Protocol. Because parties which have not signed Montreal Protocol have not agreed to any phase-wise reduction. We will not deal with them. This is what the protocol said. And finally, it required assessments to enable parties to make informed decisions. These are certain features of Montreal Protocol. So in Montreal Protocol, 100 chemicals were banned, and those chemicals could broadly be categorized into these: chlorofluorocarbons, halones, carbon tetrachloride, HCFC, hydrochlorofluorocarbons, methyl chloroform, methyl bromide. Those 100 chemicals were categorized into these categories. So this has been ratified by 190. This protocol has been ratified by 197 parties, and it is the first and only universally ratified protocol in UN history. वो convention था, Vienna was convention. This is the protocol. This is the first universally ratified protocol in the history of UN. So, has Montreal Protocol been effective? In the last 30 years or so. When did Montreal Protocol come into force? 89. In last 32 years or so, more than 98% of ozone depleting substances in phase. It has been highly effective, unlike UNFCCC, where greenhouse gases have kept on increasing. Montreal Protocol was effective, and in last 32 years, more than 98% of ODS has been done away with. Now, the ODS which are remaining are mostly hydrochlorofluorocarbons. So, Montreal Protocol we have seen HCFCs are also something that they are saying that would be phased out. The HCFCs phasing out is going on. Developing countries have been given some relaxation, तो उनका phase out थोड़ा slow चल रहा है, but 98% thing has been done. Now, what has India done to implement Montreal Protocol? India has phased out CSE. We do not use chlorofluorocarbons, we do not use carbon tetrachloride. These have already been phased out. In January 2020, we even phased out HCFC 141B. This is a compound, hydrochlorofluorocarbon 141B. This chemical was used for manufacturing in various manufacturing sectors. For example, it was used in manufacture of polyurethane. And it was one of the most important ODS after CF, ozone depleting substance after chlorofluorocarbon. This has been phased out. But has India phased out all ozone depleting substances? No. We are in the process. Currently, as of 2021, we are engaged in phase out of production and consumption of other HCFCs. So HCFC 141B we phased out. But and a number of other HCFCs we have phased out, but there are some other HCFCs which we are phasing out, and India's current plan will result in 60% of phase out of HCFCs by January 1, 2000. By 2023, we'll phase out around 60% of the HCFCs that we. समझ में आ रही है चीजें? What is the situation right now? What is the scenario right now? Now, in 2016 came an amendment called Kigali Amendment to Montreal Protocol. You understand Vienna Convention? You understand Montreal Protocol? You understand the impact of Montreal Protocol. Now, what is Kigali Amendment? So Kigali, where is Kigali located? Kigali is capital of Rwanda. तो वहां पे मॉन्ट्रियल प्रोटोकॉल वालों की मीटिंग हो रही थी 2016 में. तो मीटिंग ऑफ पार्टीज बोलते हैं इसे. यहाँ पे parties of Montreal Protocol were meeting together, members of Montreal Protocol, the meeting of parties. So 28th meeting of parties of Montreal Protocol was taking place in Kigali, and there an important amendment to Montreal Protocol was made. That is called Kigali Amendment to Montreal Protocol. So we know what Montreal Protocol is. Montreal Protocol is focused on elimination of chlorofluorocarbons, hydrochlorofluorocarbons, carbon tetrachloride, halones, and a number of other compounds, 100 के आसपास compounds. But to replace, CFCs, chlorofluorocarbons, we brought what? CFCs. Now HCFCs were also ozone depleting substance, but थोड़े से weak ozone depleting substance, but they were also global warming. They caused global warming. They had high global warming potential. They had, I should write, they had high global warming. But HCFCs were also included in Montreal Protocol. This would also be phased out, and you would see that India is already phasing out HCFCs. Right? HCFC would be phased out to replace HCFC. Hydrofluorocarbons, HFCs have been developed. Now the problem is here. HFCs are not ozone depleting. HFCs ozone को damage नहीं करते हैं. Chlorine bromine है नहीं ना यहाँ. HFCs do not deplete ozone, but they have very high global warming potential. Very high global warming potential. Because they have very high global warming potential, they may lead to global warming, and therefore ये भी इतना बहुत ज्यादा यूज नहीं होना चाहिए, right? Therefore, in Kigali Amendment, Montreal Protocol was amended to eliminate planet warming HFC. Hydrofluorocarbon को देखो, Montreal Protocol is focused on ozone depleting substance. Is HFC an ozone depleting substance? No. HFC is not an ozone depleting substance, but now Montreal Protocol has been amended at Kigali, the 28th meeting, to even deal with HFC. It calls for phasing out of HFC, a set of 19 gases in the hydrofluorocarbon family, which are extensively being used in air conditioning and refrigerant industry. These are not ozone depleting, but these are having global warming potential 1,000 times more than that of carbon dioxide. Currently, their contribution to global warming is very less. HFC's contribution to global warming is very less. But it is expected that if they continue at in the present rate, by 2050, their global warming contribution would be as much as 19%. And therefore, we need to fight that also. Now, you may have a question, sir, why did we not include it in UNFCCC? United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change or Paris Agreement? Why HFC, which is global warming? So Paris Agreement में cover होना, climate change Paris Agreement deal कर रहा है. Why was it not covered there, and why is it being covered in the Montreal Protocol, which is dealing with ozone depleting substance? It is being covered in Montreal Protocol because Montreal Protocol has been effective. Scientists thought that पेरिस एग्रीमेंट में डाल देंगे, पेरिस एग्रीमेंट तो वैसे भी इफेक्टिव हो नहीं रहा, यूएनएफसीसी इज नॉट इफेक्टिव, बट दिस इज समथिंग वेयर कंट्रीज हैव वर्कड टुगेदर, cooperated together to deal with this, and thus it was included. Fine, ये वाली बात भी समझ में आई है. Now certain legally binding commitments have been provided to the members of Montreal Protocol. What are those legally binding commitments? Now here also there is a differentiation which has been made. Like for a country like India, we are moving to HFCs right now. We do not have technology to replace HFC with the newer things. But for Europe or USA, it's easy. So for everyone, targets would be different. Elimination targets would be different in a phased-wise manner. So this is the scenario right now. Rich and industrialized countries will reduce their HFC production and consumption by 85% by 2030. उन्हें 2036 तक ही 85% तक reduce कर देना है their HFC production and consumption. 85% of what level? Of 2011-13. तो 2011-13 में जितना HFC वो produce कर रहे थे, let's say 2011-13 में Germany was using 100 units of HFC. They are saying that start reduction in 2019 and by 2036 you only use, by 2036 you only use 50 units. From 100 units come to 50 units by 15 units. Reduce it by 85%. So rich and industrialized countries will have to reduce it by 85% by 2036 of 2011-13 levels starting in 2019. Reduction should start in 2019. After 2019, your HFC production, your HFC emission should not go up. Then a number of developing countries were there, जिसमें include China, Brazil, South Africa were included. They had to reduce their HFC by 80% by the year 2045. Not 85%, they have to reduce it by 80% by the year 2045, not 2036. And 85% of what? Of what they are using in 2022. 11-13 में तो वो बहुत कम यूज कर रहे होंगे. By 2020-22 में जो यूज कर रहे हैं वो they have to reduce by 80% by 2045. And when would the reduction start? All the reduction would not happen only in 2045. Reduction would start from 2020. But there were some developing countries who बोल रहे थे कि नहीं, this is unfair for us. We are still far behind. Countries like India, they were given more relaxing. India and some other developing countries like Iran, Iraq, Pakistan, some oil economies like Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, etc. They will cut down their HFCs by 85% by 2047. By 2047, we will cut our HFCs by 85% of 2024-26. 2024-26 में हम जितना HFC प्रोड्यूस कर रहे हैं उसका 85% reduction will take place by 2047. And when would our reduction start? Our reduction will start in 2020. Fine. So our reduction doesn't have to start today. We can continue using HFCs. जो हमारा 2024-26 में लेवल है HFC का, उससे 85% रिड्यूस करना है हमें by 2047. 2047, जब तक you people would have like 25 years of service, देखेंगे कितना रिड्यूस कर पाओगे. This was Kigali amendment to Montreal Protocol. The Montreal Protocol, which was focused on ozone depleting substances earlier, have now specifically also started targeting global warming, high global warming potential substances. Fine. नाउ यहाँ पे फाइनेंसिंग वगैरह के भी नॉर्म्स हैं. In August 2021, India has decided to ratify Kigali Amendment. So, ऐसा like it was never the case. India was always willing to implement Kigali Amendment. India had never said कि हम वो implement नहीं करेंगे. India had bargained a lot when the negotiations were going on, and you would see that India has got the best deal for itself. इसका reduction 2047 तक होगा. Developed countries have to reduce it from by 2036 only. But India's reduction, so India have fought a good deal, earned a good deal, but India ने ratification इसका अभी किया. Because India was waiting for countries like US and China. So recently USA and China have ratified, in the past few months only, USA and China have ratified this agreement, and India has also ratified it. India have also, other than this, we have announced that we'll draw up a national strategy for phasing out of HFCs by 2023 in consultation with all industry stakeholders. We also say that by the way, note, our reduction would start only in 2028. Our reduction target is only starting from 2028 only, and by July 2021, 122 countries had ratified Kigali Agreement. India has become 123rd country to ratify Kigali. So Montreal Protocol को universal ratification है, but that's not the case with. Okay, now what the situation presently of ozone depletion. Ozone depletion reached its peak, ozone layer depletion reached its peak in 2020. After that, things are improving. एक report आती है every 4 years. That report is quadrennial review by Scientific Assessment Panel of Montreal Protocol. In this scientific assessment panel, you would see Montreal Protocol Scientific Assessment Panel includes world's leading expert in atmospheric sciences, and the report is published in coordination with World Meteorological Organization and UNEP. This report is published every 4 years. The 2018 ka report is the latest report that we have, because the next report would come in 2022. So what is 2018 report is saying? It is saying that action which have been taken under Montreal Protocol, it has led to long-term decrease in the atmospheric abundance of ODS. The report is saying that yes, long-term decrease of ozone depleting substances are taking place, and stratospheric layer is recovering. It reached its peak in 2000, but from then it is recovering by 1 to 3% every year. At this rate, northern hemisphere and mid-latitude zone will completely heal by 2030s, southern hemisphere will heal by 2050s, and the polar region will heal by 1000. Ozone depleting substances हम phase out कर रहे हैं, उसमें these are the positives. The report also says, 2013 report also, 18 report also says there's an instance of violation. Southeast Asia में they say that Eastern Asia में there's an unexpected increase in production of CFC11, which is a banned thing. So some violations are also taking place. The report also says that if Kigali Amendment है, is strictly implemented, then HFCs की वजह से जो global warming होगा, that will reduce by 50% by 2050. The global warming which would have taken place because of HFCs, that will reduce by 50%. World can avoid up to 0.4 degree Celsius of global warming if we phase out HFC. Then there are certain other things which they have recommended to further improve the situation. Sub phase out kar do, thoda fast track kar do, and all these are the things that they are. But Montreal Protocol, Vienna Convention, Kigali Amendment, these are examples of how global community can come together to fight a global challenge. Yeah, everything is binding. Montreal Protocol, Kigali, they're binding. 2028 India will have to start reducing. Okay, so this was ozone layer depletion and all the conventions, programs, schemes associated with them the current issues associated with them. Doubts पूछ लीजिए. अच्छा हाँ, doubts में हाथ उठ गए. Parul is asking how ozone layer is recovering. बेटा ओजोन लेयर रिकवर कैसे हो रहा है? अब क्लोरीन नहीं बन रहा है वहां पे, तो क्लोरीन उसे डिस्ट्रॉय नहीं कर रहा है. तो देखो, एक तो नेचुरल प्रोसेस है कि ओजोन वहां पे डिस्ट्रॉय होगा, रिकवर होगा बिकॉज ऑफ क्लोरीन. अब नाउ यू मे आस्क, ऐसे समझो पारुल, यू आर सेइंग कि हाउ इज ओजोन लेयर रिकवरिंग? इफ वी रिमूव CO2 फ्रॉम द एटमॉस्फेयर, the temperature will cool down because of CO2. Global warming is taking place. In the same way, because of chlorine, what is happening? Ozone layer is depleting. So if you remove that chlorine, eventually ozone layer will recover. I hope you have understood, Parul. आदर्श ने हाथ उठाया. आदर्श पूछिए, क्या पूछना चाह रहे हैं? नए प्रोडक्ट्स आ गए हैं, नए कंपाउंड्स आ गए हैं. I do not know the names of those compounds. तो आदर्श इज आस्किंग HFC की जगह क्या यूज करेंगे? तो नए केमिकल प्रोडक्ट्स बन रहे हैं which will be replacement. Okay. Anything else, guys? If countries violate, what happens? बेटे कुछ पेनल्टी वगैरह के प्रोविजंस हैं. जनरली वो सब नहीं होता है. इंटरनेशनल प्रेशर प्लेज इट्स रोल, बट देयर आर सम प्रोविजंस. कोई और डाउट? लाइक डोंट आस्क ऐसे बहुत ही वेग वाला क्वेश्चन. इसमें जो इतना पढ़ाया है उसमें कोई डाउट है क्या? इट सीम्स आई शुड स्टॉप लाइव क्लासेस. कोई डाउट वाउट होता नहीं है तो रिकॉर्ड ही कर देता हूँ. आप रिकॉर्डेड क्लासेस देखिए. नहीं, कुछ नहीं है. चलिए, then I'll move on to the next topic, environmental impact assessment. Fine. I should move to environmental impact assessment. Okay. EIA, environmental impact assessment. तो ना इन 2020 एक environmental impact assessment का नया नोटिफिकेशन आया था which remained a big bawal for the whole 2020, and in fact in mains 2020 they asked the question. So it was a draft notification. It was a draft notification. It was not, it had not come into force. Even then a question on that was a mains exam. तो जनरली आपसे एक चीज बहुत लोग बोलते हैं कि ड्राफ्ट या बिल्स के ऊपर क्वेश्चन नहीं पूछे जाते हैं. दे आर रॉन्ग. दे हैवंट एनालाइज्ड पास्ट ईयर क्वेश्चन. 2003, 4, 5 में भी जब चाइल्ड लेबर बिल्स वगैरह आ रहे थे, क्वेश्चंस वर बीइंग आस्क्ड ऑन. Even the bill which is being there and discussed in the newspapers and all, questions may get asked on it whether it has passed till then or not. In the same way, this draft environmental impact assessment notification, even though it has not come into force till now, because of a lot of opposition and all, it has not come into force even till now. It would be. Adarsh is saying live classes make us more attentive. हाँ भाई, मैं नहीं रिकॉर्ड कर रहा है, मजाक कर रहा था. आप लोग कुछ पूछते नहीं हो इसलिए. तो आदर्श ये करेंगे, मैं वीडियो रिकॉर्ड कर दूंगा एंड देन आई विल स्ट्रीम इट. इट वुड अपीयर टू यू पीपल कि एज इफ आई एम टीचिंग लाइव. ओके, सुबह सुबह 5-6 बजे उठना पड़ता है आप लोगों की वजह से. एनवायरमेंटल इम्पैक्ट असेसमेंट. So let's start this topic. Environmental impact assessment. Look at the term. In order to understand what it is, look at the term. स्पेलिंग वगैरह सब सही है ना? Environmental. Look at this term. Assessment. Assessment is study, analysis of how environment will be impacted. Is the environmental impact assessment. Let's say we're coming up with a new hydropower plant. गंगा के ऊपर योगी जी एक हाइड्रो पावर प्लांट बनवा रहे हैं. like यूपी में सिचुएशन ही नहीं है, यूपी पे प्लेन बन नहीं सकता, बट लेट्स से योगी डिसाइड्स कि सम वाटर ऑफ गंगा वुड शुड बी डाइवर्टेड एंड लेट्स क्रिएट अ हाइड्रो पावर प्लांट. So this is a project जिसका environmental impact assessment होना चाहिए. कि how will it impact environment? How the diversion of water from Ganga will impact the flow of Ganga, will impact the biodiversity, will impact the vegetation, will impact livelihood of people. When we say environmental impact assessment, the definition has been very broad, has become very broad now. Definition is not only dealing with environment पे क्या impact होगा, it's dealing with a number of other aspects. So you look at this. What is environmental impact assessment? It is a study to predict the environmental, social, economical, cultural, human health impact of proposed project or activity. So, though we are calling it environmental impact assessment, but it is a study to assess what? Environmental, socio-economic, cultural, human health impact of any proposed project or activity. Why? See, even before a project starts, if we can study about what would its impact be, we can prevent damages that may take place because of that. So environmental impact assessment is based on what is known as precautionary principle. Even before a problem is created by a project, you are taking precautionary steps. Let's understand कि क्या क्या problems हो सकती हैं, and let's take precautionary steps to prevent those problems. And if those problems are more damaging than the benefit of the product, let's scrap this project only. This is environmental impact. Okay, I hope समझ में आ रही हैं चीजें. EIA basic level पे definition. Now there are lots of advantages. It will ensure that the projects which we are planning, developing, they are environmentally safe, they are sustainable. It would also ensure that resources are optimally utilized. Because when we do this environmental impact assessment, we in this assessment, the body which does this assessment looks at alternative also. Yogi ji is diverting Ganga ka pani, but why? Why can't this be done? So through that, optimum utilization of resources. It will also save time and cost of the project. Why time and cost would be saved? You would say, sir, बिना वजह, by including environmental impact assessment, you are adding delay to the project. Project plan क्या implement किया? How is it saying that time and cost would be saved? It would be saved to take precautionary. At the middle of the project, you realize, oh, this environmental damage is occurring. We'll have to take this step to prevent it. It would lead to more cost. It would lead to more delay. Also, in environmental impact assessment, we consult local people. So, future में opposition की वजह से project रुक जाए, फंस जाए, those kind of things would not happen. So, it will save time and cost, and it will lessen conflict, reduce conflict. When tribal people start protesting, when local community starts protesting, those things would not happen if their permission is taken as part of environmental impact assessment itself, in the beginning itself. Okay, so in India, environmental impact assessment started in 1976-77. It was in 1976-77 for the first time for a project planning commission asked Department of Science and Technology to look at a project from environmental angle. एक रिवर वैली प्रोजेक्ट था जिसे डेवलप कर रहा प्लानिंग कमीशन जिसको डेवलप करवाना चाहता था. So it asked Department of Science and Technology assess it from environmental angle, how damaging it would be for him. The planning commission was not a statutory body, है ना, तो it was just an executive decision कि करवा लेते हैं. Until 1994 environmental impact assessment जितने भी प्रोजेक्ट का हुआ था, that was an administrative decision. That was not mandated by any law. It was an administrative decision which lacked statutory. But in 1994 मिनिस्ट्री ऑफ एनवायरनमेंट फॉरेस्ट एंड क्लाइमेट चेंज अंडर एनवायरमेंटल प्रोटेक्शन एक्ट. अच्छा ये एक मिनट, एनवायरमेंटल प्रोटेक्शन एक्ट का है. कितने लोग मुझे परेशान करते रहते हैं एनवायरमेंटल प्रोटेक्शन एक्ट नहीं पढ़ा, एनवायरमेंटल प्रोटेक्शन एक्ट नहीं पढ़ाया. भाई देखो, समझो, जब हम कोस्टल रेगुलेशन जोन पढ़ा रहे हैं, जब हम प्लास्टिक वेस्ट मैनेजमेंट रूल्स पढ़ा रहे हैं, जब हम सॉलिड वेस्ट मैनेजमेंट रूल पढ़ा रहे हैं, जब हम ई वेस्ट मैनेजमेंट रूल्स पढ़ा रहे हैं, जब हम ग्राउंड वाटर रिलेटेड चीज, all those things are being done because of the powers which have been given to Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change under Environment Protection Act. In the same way, environmental impact assessment, it is here, look at carefully, in 1994 Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change under the EPA, under the Environment Protection Act 1986 promulgated an EIA notification. The Environment Protection Act is a general act which is giving certain powers to powers and responsibility to the ministry so that they can take steps. So wo notifications ke through they came up with this. So now the environmental impact assessment notification which was brought in 1994, it was as per the power given to Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change under EIA, under environmental impact assessment. So now this under Environment Protection Act 1986. So now this EIA which came into play in 1994 had a statutory backing because ministry had the power to make this environmental impact assessment notification because of the Environment Protection Act 19. Okay, now but this is no more in play. The Environment Impact Assessment notification for 1994 is no more into play. It is Environmental Impact Assessment notification for 2006 which is in force right now. और इसी का amendment वगैरह होता रहता है. So what is Environmental Impact Assessment? What is Environmental Impact Assessment 2006? And how is this notification different from 1994 notification? सबसे पहले 1994 में आए हम notification लेके for environmental impact assessment. How is this 2006 notification different from the 1994 notification? Let's understand that. So first of all, the 2006 notification, like the 1994 notification, was notified by Ministry of Environment, Forest under the Environmental Protection Act 1986. It makes it mandatory for various projects to get environmental clearance. A number of projects are there which will need environment clearance, and this clearance can only be given after various environmental requirements have been fulfilled. So how one major difference between 1994 notification and 2006 notification is here a number for the responsibility of clearing a number of projects have been given to state governments. In 1994, this clearance responsibility was mostly with the central government. Here, responsibility has been transferred to state governments also. So there are some projects which are called category A project. Its responsibility is even with central government even now. So here the appraisal would be done at the national level, and this category of project, because it requires mandatory clearance, it doesn't even have to go through screening process. But category B, जहाँ पे state level appraisal होता है, they have to mandatorily go through screening process, because in some case they do not even have to go for environmental impact assessment. So इसमें category B1 projects are there which are mandatorily required to go through environmental impact assessment. Category B2 are there which don't require environmental impact assessment too. Okay, this B2 projects are there which do not require any environmental impact assessment too. तो ये prelims के लिए थोड़ा सा important है कि under environmental impact assessment 2006, B1, B2, category A, category B1, category B2. So category A, appraisal by at the national level, category B, appraisal at the state level, but इसमें भी B1 requires environmental impact assessment and B2 do not require environmental impact assessment. And therefore, because in some cases environmental impact assessment is not required here, they have to go through mandatory screening. Here screening process is not mandatory because सबका environmental impact assessment तो होगा ही. तो screening नहीं भी हुई तो before the project environmental impact assessment has to happen. So there it could be identified कि हाँ इस project में ये problem. Okay, now if you look at the process which is involved in environmental impact assessment as given under the 2006 notification, 4 steps होते हैं: screening, scoping, public hearing and appraisal. And this is cyclic in nature. In appraisal, you may come to conclusion, the committee may come to a conclusion that this project is going to harm environment like anything, it should not be allowed. So some modification in the project would be made, and it will again go through this cycle of screening, scoping, public hearing or appraisal. Or if public hearing में problem है, so after appraisal it would be given कि public was not happy, तो maybe एक और meeting उनके साथ होगी, तो after appraisal things will go back to public hearing and then appraisal would take place. So EIA process is cyclic with considerable interaction between various steps. ऐसा नहीं है कि पहले स्क्रीनिंग हुआ, फिर स्कोपिंग हुआ, फिर पब्लिक हियरिंग हुआ, फिर अप्रेजल होगा, चीजें खत्म होगी. इट्स साइक्लिक. अप्रेजल के बाद वापस स्क्रीनिंग हो सकता है, and there's a lot of interaction among these 4 parts of the environmental impact assessment. Now this assessment is carried by EAC, Expert Appraisal Committee. This Expert Appraisal Committee consists of scientists and project management experts from different. So for any project जिसका environmental impact assessment होना है, there would be a expert appraisal committee formed which will do its assessment. Now EAC will frame the screening के बाद it will form the scope of EIA study, and then it will submit a preliminary report. This preliminary report will be published, and public consultation will be done. After public consultation, final appraisal of the project is done by. So ministry ordinary is obliged to accept the report of EAC. EAC बोल रहा है कि नहीं ये project अच्छा नहीं है. Ministry says okay, will not start the project. If the EAC says that this project should be implemented with these changes, perhaps ministry will recommend the project developers, promoters, ये changes कर सकते हो क्या? Those kind of things would happen. Now this is the system of environmental impact assessment in India. In mains examination, we'll also talk about what are the problems in the current system, why we see that there are lots of projects which are happening which are damaging environment, and why environmental impact assessment system in the country is not able to deal with the things effectively. But here our focus would be on 2020 notification. एक environmental impact assessment 2020 notification was released by government. This was a draft notification, it has not come into force, but this notification was supposed to replace the 2006 notification which is existing right now. The 2006 notification which is existing right now was supposed to be replaced by 2020 notification, but a lot of criticisms happened and this was not done. So what is there in the 2020 draft notification because of which it was criticized? So this notification focused a lot on ease of doing business. This is a good thing. It has simplified a lot of things. For example, there's a single window online portal for application of the clearance. जब आपको clearance चाहिए किसी project के लिए, तो there's a single window portal. You'll go and apply for it, and accordingly you'll get clearance. There is mechanism for post facto clearance also. Like initially you have started the project but have not been able to get clearance. You can get that clearance after the project has started. There's provision for modernization without safeguards. Modernization without safeguards in the sense, if there's a project which is already there and you want to modernize it, तो उसके लिए दोबारा से environmental impact assessment for that modernization thing, if it's not huge enough, should not be done. तो इस तरह से a number of steps to improve ease of doing business has been, but some key concerns are there, because of which a lot of opposition had taken place. One concern is ex post facto clearance. What is ex post facto? After the project has started, उसके बाद clearance लेना. You have to do assessment, you have to do it beforehand. No. Ex post facto clearance is illegal. Supreme Court has said that. Supreme Court, अभी 1st of April को Supreme Court ने बोला कि ex post facto environmental clearance is contrary to the law. Environment clearance has to happen before it. पता नहीं government thought that 1st of April को Supreme Court April Fool बना रहा था, बात मानी नहीं Supreme Court की. This is 1st of April of 2020. The environmental clearance has to happen before. Post facto बाद में आप realize करोगे कि oh, it's going to damage environment so much. So you would not break the project. You will चलो चला दो, इतना investment हो गया, ये हो गया, right? इसीलिए environmental impact assessment has to be done before. This was one major criticism. Then public is generally given some time to furnish its response. That time period has been reduced. So basically public अपना response दे पाए, वो time period reduce कर दिया गया है. So it would be difficult for people to study the project, to understand the project and give their feedback. So this project will harm us like this. We do not want it. This project will benefit us. We want it. This consultation period has been reduced. Then long list of projects have been included under category B2. Remember category B2 में क्या था? Projects which do not require environmental impact assessment. And a large number of projects, offshore and onshore oil, gas and shale exploration, hydroelectric projects up to 25 megawatt, irrigation projects between 2000 to 10,000 hectares of command area, small and medium mineral beneficiation units, small foundries involving furnace units, some categories of re-rolling mills, small and medium cement plants, small clinkering grinding units, acids other than phosphoric or ammonia. इतने सारे projects हैं which have been included in B2. In the older system, by default projects were not added in the B2. वो screening process के बाद it was decided it should go in B1 or B2 and so on. इसका environmental impact assessment होने की जरूरत है या नहीं है? Oh, इसकी जरूरत नहीं है, let's put it in B2. But now, in the notification itself, several projects have been added in B2. No screening is needed. This has emerged as a major concern, major issue. Then in identification of non-compliance or violence of environment clearance condition. Environment clearance जिस condition पे दी गई थी वो violate हो गया है. This identification can only be done by suo motu or by project proponent or by a government authority. एक public जाके बोलता है कि देखो this clearance का you had given environment clearance with the condition that they will not pollute the groundwater, but they are polluting the groundwater. On that basis, you cannot identify non-compliance. This non-compliance should either come suo motu or by project proponent or by government. Public का role कम करने की कोशिश. Then monitoring has been weakened. Earlier in the older system, a compliance report that you are complying to all the environment clearance conditions had to be submitted every 6 months. Now the compliance report has to be submitted every 1 year. Then a number of projects, the draft notification says that strategic projects will not go through all this process. So strategic project will not be placed in public domain. But strategic project क्या होंगे, that will be decided by government. Government will give this strategic time. Basically, government may say that a road project is strategic and say कि इसका environmental impact assessment करने की जरूरत नहीं. So it can be misused. Thus, because of all this reason, draft EIA notification by environment activists, the draft is under, not in play yet, it's not in force yet, it's under. But you should know what are there in 2020 draft notification, because of which bawal is happening. Bawal को क्या बोलेंगे? Chaos. Because of which chaos is happening. Now, some updates. July, August में environment, biodiversity and climate change related updates are there. Let's talk about these updates. What are these things? सबसे पहले है dairy sector, how it is impacting climate change. एक छोटा सा आर्टिकल था डाउन टू अर्थ में, तो देयर आर 2-3 पॉइंट्स दैट यू शुड नो. तो agriculture contributes about 16% of India's greenhouse gas emission and which is released by cattle during dairy farm. तो उसमें methane from ruminant belching and animal waste contributes 75% of the total greenhouse gas emission of the dairy sector. जब हम dairy sector की बात करते हैं, सबसे ज्यादा कौन सा greenhouse gas emit हो रहा है? It is methane. This methane is produced by and from animal waste or by belching, ruminant belching. Then water and energy intensive crops are also contributing to global warming. and are causing alarming loss to biodiversity. Now we are talking about dairy sector. India's dairy sector and impact on climate change. तो यहाँ पे हम डेयरी सेक्टर में एनर्जी इंटेंसिव क्रॉप्स की क्यों बात कर रहे हैं? So that dairy sector, those crops which are used for food for cattle, those crops are for dairy sector only. तो यहाँ पे हम बोल रहे हैं कि water and energy intensive crops needed to feed the cattle also cause alarming loss to biodiversity and create other issues. तो बेसिक चीज बस थोड़ी सी है, एक दो पॉइंट्स आई वांटेड टू कवर हियर. नाउ I think this was there in yesterday's newspaper or 2-3 days back newspaper that Kendrapada district of Odisha, उसमें ना क्या हुआ है, which is the critically endangered crocodile species in India. हाँ, critically endangered एक ही है इंडिया में, which is the critically endangered crocodile species in India. गधे हो सब एक नंबर के, क्यों पढ़ा रहा हूं? किसी को नहीं पता? घड़ियाल. There are 3 crocodilian species in India: घड़ियाल, मगर and saltwater crocodile. घड़ियाल is critically endangered. We had studied कि घड़ियाल का जो reproductive population है, that's only found in Chambal. But then in updates we had said that even in Odisha we have seen. I also saw you an image where एक घड़ियाल पे बहुत सारे बच्चे थे उसके. The reproductive population has come up in Odisha also, and Odisha has become the only state where all the 3 species of crocodile, घड़ियाल, मगर and saltwater crocodile is found. Now Odisha में एक district है, उसमें तीनों हो गए. केंद्रपाड़ा district. It was in news recently अभी that in the Kendrapada district of Odisha happened recently. We've seen a kid, baby घड़ियाल, a baby घड़ियाल. So उस डिस्ट्रिक्ट में पहले सॉल्ट वाटर क्रोकोडाइल मगर तो मिलता ही था, अब दिस घड़ियाल इज आल्सो फाउंड. So it has become the only district in India where all 3 species of crocodiles naturally. अब किसी ने जू में तीनों स्पीसीज रखे हुए हैं तो I'll not consider that. Do not fight with me. Okay, but this is very wrong. You're not saying कि which is the only critically endangered. किसी ने चैट में भी नहीं बताया which is the only critically endangered crocodilian species. This is like, अब मेरा मन ही उठ रहा है, इतनी मेहनत से पढ़ा रहा हूँ और आप ये नहीं बता पा रहे हो. मुझे लगा मेरे बच्चों को सबसे मतलब पहले, अरे ये सर, ये क्रिटिकली एंडेंजर्ड रेप्टाइल्स हैं, ये क्रिटिकली एंडेंजर्ड मछलियां हैं. घड़ियाल तो यार एग्जाम में आया हुआ है, इतनी बार मैंने इतनी मेहनत से पढ़ाया है. रिवाइज कर नहीं रहे हो. देखो, if you will not revise things, no, then my classes becomes harmful. If you are revising things, my classes would ensure you that you are the best prepared, you are among the best prepared students. क्योंकि मैं बहुत पढ़ाता हूँ, बट आप रिवाइज नहीं कर रहे हो और एग्जाम से 2 दिन पहले पढ़ने बैठोगे ना, तो एनवायरमेंट में वी हैव कवर्ड 300 पेजेस. इट वोंट बी पॉसिबल. बट इफ यू हैव रिवाइज्ड everything properly, you'd be like, environment we have covered 300. That will be a confidence boost जब आपको उतनी चीजें आती होंगी. ठीक है, तो प्लीज कोशिश करिए कि पूरा. अब देखो, एनवायरमेंट आज खत्म हो रहा है. लाइक दिस इज द लास्ट बुकलेट दैट वी हैव. द एनवायरमेंट इज गेटिंग ओवर टुडे. एवरीथिंग इज डन. You ensure that now you go and pick up all the test papers from the market. आपको बोलता हूं ना कि एक बार वो टॉपिक कंप्लीट हो जाने दो, एनवायरमेंट के जितने भी क्वेश्चन पेपर्स हैं मार्केट में, सब उठाओ, सब अटेम्प्ट. Study 3-4 chapters of Shankar IAS, first 3-4 chapters, all the notes that we have, all the booklets of environment that we have around 20 booklets of environment, right? Classes उतनी होंगी, शायद booklets कम. Yeah, okay. So we have these many booklets of environment, ये और first 3-4 chapters of Shankar, and attempt all the tests. Now is the time to attempt. I say dedicate 4 days for environment. I'll finish everything. Environment will give you 10 to 15 questions. Definitely. You can get more than that, but 10 to 15 worst case में, अगर 4-5 दिन में वो 10 to 15 questions श्योर हो जाते हैं. Do the same for polity. Polity में we have completed current affairs. Go to the market, pick up all the papers of polity, finish Lakshmikant, finish current affairs, give 5 days. 5 दिन बैठता हूँ, 4 दिन बैठता हूँ, will study everything which is in Lakshmikant, will study all the current affairs, will attempt all the tests. Slowly keep doing all these things for all the subjects, you will realize कि हाँ यार preparation हो गई. Okay, now let's go to हाँ तो केंद्रपाड़ा district of Odisha, because we have already covered all the 3 species of घड़ियाल्स, हम तीनों को कवर कर चुके हैं. I'm not covering them here again, but केंद्रपाड़ा district. Now Minervaria pentali, एक frog has been discovered recently. August 2021 में न्यूज में था. You remember Deepak Pental? Who was Deepak Pental? Who is Deepak Pental? GM Mustard, yes, कुछ बच्चों को पता है. तमरीन DM Mustard बोल रहे बेटा, GM Mustard. DM बनने का इतना शौक है अभी से DM. हाँ, GM Mustard जिसने डेवलप किया. वाइस चांसलर ऑफ दिल्ली यूनिवर्सिटी who developed Dhara Mustard Hybrid 11 DMH, है ना. DM Mustard वाला बंदा दीपक पेंटल, वो जेनेटिसिस्ट हैं. उनके ही नाम पे this frog has been named Minervaria. So this is a frog which researchers from Delhi University have discovered recently, and they have named this frog after former vice chancellor and renowned plant geneticist Professor Deepak Pental. This discovery was made when a comprehensive study was done on this genus Minervaria. Minervaria genus है ना, Minervaria genus. This Minervaria genus is considered very confusing because there are large number of frogs in this. So in this genus, another frog, Minervaria pentali, has been discovered recently. This was discovered in southern Western Ghats. So Kerala और Tamil Nadu, they were walking around, and Kerala और Tamil Nadu में कई जगह पे इन्हें this particular frog species, Minervaria pentali. अब देखो ये story, जैसे one is you could have read the notes. Other is when you are listening to this in the class, Deepak Pental, pentali, it would be easy to remember in exam. Pentali, oh, this was a frog. We have covered recently, named after Deepak Pental. Fine. Then we have Amolops adicola. Amolops adicola, another frog. Amolops adicola. देखो पेंटल कहाँ मिला? पेंटल नहीं, पेंटली कहाँ मिला? पेंटली मिला वेस्टर्न घाट्स में, सदर्न वेस्टर्न घाट्स, केरला एंड तमिलनाडु. ओके. Amolops adicola कहाँ मिला है? Arunachal. Because Adi is a tribe which is found in Arunachal, and it has been named after. It has been named after them. So what is this? Researchers have discovered a new species of cascade frog from Arunachal Pradesh and named it after Adi Hills, the abode of. So now when you remember Amolops adicola, तो आदि नाम आपको लगना चाहिए, oh, this is the frog which was found in the Adi Hill region of Arunachal, which was discovered recently in the Adi Hill region of Arunachal. Fine. Now this frog is called a cascade frog. यहाँ देखेंगे, it's a new species of cascade frog because they are specialized to live near small waterfalls which are also called cascades. गिर रहा है, cascade. So they are found near small waterfalls. Generally, frogs are not found near waterfalls. Waterfalls, पानी गिर रहा है, frogs may find it difficult, but these frogs cascade frogs have evolved. They have extensive foot webbing. They have expanded digit tips for better hold and all. They are found near waterfalls. So adicola, pentali कहाँ? Western Ghats. Adicola, Arunachal, Adi tribe, Adi Hills. Fine. Now, एक रिपोर्ट अभी रिसेंटली पब्लिश गई थी जूलॉजिकल सर्वे ऑफ इंडिया ने, एनिमल डिस्कवरीज 2020. A few days back, a report was published by Zoological Survey of India about animals animal kingdom में species which were discovered in 2020 in India. So basically, annual discoveries report is something that Zoological Survey of India has been publishing since 2007. It publishes it every year. So for 2020, it has published this report, and where it says that 557 new species have been added to India's list of fauna. Zoological survey है तो फ्लोरा की बात नहीं कर रहा है, fauna की बात कर रहा है, animal kingdom की बात कर रहा है. So 557 new species have been added in the India's list of fauna. India में कौन-कौन से animal kingdom की species मिलते हैं, उसमें 557 have been added. Now all of them are not new. 407 are new species altogether. जैसे आदि कोला 2021 वाले लिस्ट में आदि कोला and pentally would be new species. But 150 are new records. What are new records? Those species were known from other parts of the world. India में नहीं पता था हमें, but now we have recorded them in India also. So in 2020, 557 new species have been added into India's fauna. उसमें से 407 are new species which were not known to the world, and 150 are new records. So with this addition, with this 557 addition, total number of faunal species in India are 1,02,700. Animal kingdom में कितने species हैं which are found in 1 lakh plus. You remember animal kingdom? Vertebrates, invertebrates. Vertebrates में जिनके backbone होते हैं, mammals, aves, birds, fish, reptiles, amphibians. Then there are invertebrates, crustaceans and all those are invertebrates. Crabs, mosquitoes, butterflies, they are all invertebrates, right? So which are the new species, important new species? Trimeresurus salazar, ये last year पढ़ाया था मैंने. ये last year में 2020 के first part में discover हुआ होगा, तो 2020 current affairs में मैंने कराया था. This is a green pit viper which was discovered in Arunachal Pradesh. It's a snake species. It has been named Salazar. Who's Salazar? कौन बताएगा? यार तुम लोग एकदम नालायक हो, तो टाइप भी नहीं कर रहा. It's some Harry Potter वाला कुछ कैरेक्टर होता है. Okay, then there is Lycodon deccanensis. This is a wolf snake which has been discovered in Karnataka. Lycodon deccanensis, नाम देखो, Deccan उससे. Then there is Spherotheca bengaluru. This frog has been named after the city of Bangalore. It's a burrowing frog. Spherotheca bengaluru. Then Cyrus anjali. आपकी कोई दोस्त अंजलि नाम की हो, उसे आप चढ़ा सकते हो. It's a new species of deep water species of snake eel which has been discovered from Kerala. Right? Then there is Glyptothorax eudicaiensis. It's a catfish species that has been discovered in Manipur. There is Plister galatiensis. It's a new species of scrap beetles which have been found in Great Nicobar Island. ये सब 2020 की discoveries हैं, 21 की नहीं है, which have been talked about in Zoological Survey of India. तो हिंदू ने इन सारी चीजों को mention किया था. There are some new records. वो तो discoveries थी, पहली बार वो species study करी गई हैं. New records मतलब these species have been found in other parts of the world. India में we have recorded them for the first time. So Mitosis CF frater. It's a bat species that was earlier reported from China, Taiwan, Russia. It has now been discovered in Uttarakhand. Mitosis CF frater. Then there is Zuthera citrina gibson-hilli. It's an orange-headed thrush. Thrush is a bird. It's an orange-headed thrush earlier known from southern Myanmar to South Thailand. It has recently been seen in Narakondam Island in the Andaman and Nicobar. So I'm not like 557 species were there. I cannot go through 557 species. I cannot make you go through 557 species. But there are some which were there in the newspaper we should know about. Okay, then there are some other things that we should know. Of the 557 species, ज्यादातर invertebrates थे. Vertebrates advanced होते हैं, कम होते हैं. तो 486 species were invertebrates and 71, only 71 were vertebrates. Among invertebrates, mostly insects were there. 344 insects are there. Among vertebrates, fish and reptiles dominated the vertebrates. New fish species and new reptile species were there. आपने देखा snakes वगैरह मिल रहे हैं. Then, if you look at state-wise discoveries of new species, highest number of discovery have been made in Karnataka. Western Ghats है वहाँ पे. Western Ghats have not been explored that much. So highest number of species were in Karnataka, then in Kerala. Then Rajasthan and West Bengal also. Rajasthan may be desert and all those regions have not been properly analyzed yet. So we are still finding more and more species. Then new records के term में कि new records, the species were found in other parts of the world but have been recorded in India for the first time. That Arunachal Pradesh has highest new record, followed by Andaman and Nicobar Islands. Scientists of Zoological Survey of India themselves contributed in the overall 121 new species and 86 new records. So almost 200 of 557 new species के discovery में contribution is that of Zoological Survey of India. It means there are species where Zoological Survey of India have not. Then, if you look at data from 2010 to 2020, Zoological Survey of India has been publishing this data since 2007. तो पिछले 10 साल का अगर आप डेटा देखोगे तो total of 4,1112 species have been identified in India which are new. तो उसमें से new are 2,800 and 1,312 are new records. Then Zoological Survey of India have contributed to roughly 34% of the species which are newly described and 68% of the species which are newly recorded in India. Okay, so Zoological Survey of India shows that India is a mega diverse country with 23.39% of its geographical area under forest and tree cover. In terms of mega biodiversity, India is ranked 8th in the world with 0.546 as biodiversity index. India's biodiversity index is 0.46, one of the highest in the world, and that's why India's rank is 8th. Okay, so this was the recent India में कौन-कौन से animals discover हुए हैं उस पे एक recent study was published in Hindu. We have covered that. Then अभी वाल्मीकि National Park and Tiger Reserve was in because of floods. Because of floods, नेपाल से river इंडिया में आते हैं, वो flooded हो रहे हैं. Valmiki Tiger Reserve was facing some concern. So Valmiki Tiger Reserve and National Park is the only tiger reserve and only national park of Bihar. बिहार में एक ही टाइगर रिजर्व है, एक ही नेशनल पार्क है, वाल्मीकि. Fine. So this Valmiki Tiger Reserve, it's located here. Look at इंडो-नेपाल, बिहार है, ऊपर नेपाल है. तो इंडिया नेपाल के बॉर्डर पे लोकेटेड है on the bank of Gandak River. See, this is the Gandak River which is located blue color में. This is the Gandak River. So it's located on the bank of Gandak River. On the other side, इस side तो it is Valmiki National Park. On the other side, the national park is called Chitwan National Park. That is on Nepal side. The national park is Chitwan National. Now, it's located in West Champaran district. It has tigers, 40 tigers, 31 of them are adults, 12 are cubs and so on. अभी floods आए हैं August 2021 में, because of which it was in news. The flood की वजह से life of tigers may be threatened and all those things were there. Because it was in news, you should know कि Valmiki Tiger Reserve कहाँ located है. I remember धनंजय सर ने एक वीडियो डाला है YouTube पे जिसमें he is trying to make you remember all 100 national park. तो उसमें वो मिकी वाल्मीकि करके याद करा रहे हैं इसे. How do you remember all these national parks? Okay, then चलिए आज यहीं रुकते हैं. Rest of the things we'll do tomorrow. और कल की भी बुकलेट्स मैं आपको भेज चुका हूँ, व्हाट्सएप ग्रुप पे डाल चुका हूँ कि गवर्नेंस का कौन सा बुकलेट है, वो भी रखिएगा. Rest of the section will do tomorrow, and then that booklet also will do tomorrow. ओके, तो गवर्नेंस सोशल जस्टिस पे थोड़ा सा फोकस कर लेते हैं, 2-3-4 क्लास में वो भी खत्म हो जाएंगे एंड देन जो भी अपडेट्स होंगे हम करते रहें। ठीक है, चलिए, आई विल सी यू टुमारो, थैंक यू।